Section 18. Discharge of accused operation as acquittal. The order indicate in the preceding section shall amount of acquittal of the discharged accused and shall be barred to future prosecution for same offense, unless the accused fails and refuses to testify against his co-accused in accordance with his sworn statement constituting the basis for discharge. For example, would be a case where accused person is discharged from criminal trial due to the lack of evidence or for other legal reasons. Once discharged, that a person cannot be prosecuted against for the same offense, effectively being acquitted or of the charge. This ensures protection against double jeopardy where a person cannot be tried twice for the same crime.
Rule 119. Trial. First of all, what is trial? Trial, a formal examination of evidence before a judge and typically before a jury, in order to decide guilt in a case of criminal or civil proceedings. Rule 119, Section 19. When mistake has been made in charging the proper offense, when it becomes manifest at any time before judgment that a mistake has been made in charging the proper offense and the accused cannot be convicted of the offense charged or any other offense necessarily included therein, the accused shall not be discharged if there appears good cause to detain him. In such case, the court shall commit the accused to answer for the proper offense and dismiss the original case upon the filing of the proper information. This excerpt seems to be referring to legal proceedings. It states that if it's realized before a verdict that there was a mistake in charging someone with a specific offense and they cannot be convicted of that or any related offense, they won't be discharged if there's a good reason to keep them detained. Instead, the court will commit them to answer for the correct offense and dismiss the original case once the correct information is filed. It's essentially about rectifying errors in charging someone with a crime. After the trial, the court shall render judgment on the basis of the entire evidence presented during the trial. The judgment should state clearly and distinctly the facts and the law upon which it is based. It should also specify the offense or offenses for which the accused is being convicted or acquitted, as well as the penalty imposed, if any. Additionally, the judgment should include the civil liability or damages awarded if applicable.
Good day, ma'am. My topic is Rule 119, Section 20. Appointment of acting prosecutor when a prosecutor, his assistant, or deputy is disqualified to act due to any the grounds state in Section 1 of Rule 137 or for any other reasons, the judge or the prosecutor shall communicate with the Secretary of Justice in order that the latter may appoint an acting prosecutor. This sections pertains the appointment of an acting prosecutor when the regular prosecutor, their assistant or deputy is unable to fulfill their duties due to disqualification based on certain legal grounds for any other reasons. In such cases, the judge or prosecutor need to inform the Secretary of Justice so that an acting prosecutor can be appointed to carry out the necessary duties. Additionally, the provision allows for the appointment of an acting prosecutor for reasons not explicitly stated on Rule 137, providing flexibility in addressing unforeseen circumstances that may prevent the regular prosecutor from carrying out their duties effectively. Uh, when such arises, the responsibility fails on either the judge or the remaining prosecutor to notify uh, the Secretary of Justice. This notification ensures that the Secretary acting prosecutor to temporarily assume the responsibilities of the disqualified individual. This mechanism helps to ensure continuity in legal proceeding and the administration of justice. The administration of justice, even in situation where the regular prosecutor is unable to perform their duties.
A pleasant day, ma'am. I am Clarissa Pia Mingwa, and today I will be going to discuss the two sections assigned to me, which are Section 21 and Section 22. This will also serve as the continuation of previous discussion. First is the Section 21, exclusion of the public. The judge may motu proprio exclude the public from the courtroom if the evidence to be produced during the trial is offensive to decency or public morals. He may also, on motion of the accused, exclude the public from the trial except court personnel and the counsel of the parties. So, to make it simple, this section basically says that a judge has the power to ask people or the public to leave the courtroom during a trial under certain circumstances. First, if the evidence is offensive, if the evidence to be shown during the trial is really inappropriate or goes against what's considered decent or morally right, the judge can ask everyone who's not directly involved out of the courtroom. This is called excluding the public, and the judge can do it on their own without anyone asking. Second, if the accused wants the privacy, if the person being accused of a crime wants the trial to be private, they can ask the judge to exclude the public too. In this case, only the necessary people like court staffs and lawyers could stay. Section 22. Consolidation of trials of related offenses. Charges for offenses founded on the same facts or forming part of a series of offenses of similar character may be tried jointly at the discretion of the court. Next is Section 22 titled Consolidation of Trials of Related Offenses. But first, let us define what is an offense or offenses. As defined, an offense is an action that breaks the law or goes against established rules or regulations. It's something that is considered wrong or illegal by society or by the authorities. And under Section 22 of the law deals with the consolidation of trials for related offenses. This means that if someone is charged with multiple offenses that are connected in the same way, the court has the discretion or to decide to try these offenses together in one trial rather than separately. To understand this better, let's take an example. A man is accused of committing a series of burglaries in the same neighborhood over some time. So each burglary is considered a separate offense. However, since all the burglaries are related, they occurred in the same area and involve similar methods, the court might decide to consolidate the trials for these offenses. By consolidating the trials, the court can save time and resources by avoiding the need to conduct multiple separate trials for each offense. It also allows for a more efficient and coherent presentation of evidence, as all related offenses can be discussed together in one proceeding. But it's important to remember also that consolidation of trials is at the discretion of the court. The court will consider factors such as the efficiency of consolidation, the interest of justice, and also any potential prejudice to the defendant before making a decision. That's all, ma'am. Thank you po.